My name is MUCASEY, and I have the privilege of serving as the chair of Holocaust Museum Houston. On behalf of our Board of Trustees and our advisors, I would like to welcome you to today's ceremonies commemorating the United Nations officially designated International Holocaust Remembrance Day. We are thrilled to have so many of our Houston's consular corps present today, and we are delighted to join with the American Jewish Committee in hosting this event. To those Holocaust survivors who join us today, please know that we stand in awe of you. 17 years ago, it was your vision that led us to the creation of this museum as a gift to our community of Houston, a place that allows us all to bear witness to the hatred, the prejudice, and the apathy that occurred 70 years ago, and a place that teaches and inspires us each day to take those lessons from the past and apply them to the present. To the diplomats who join us today, let me say that your presence here shows a great deal of respect for the memory of those who were murdered in the Holocaust and in other genocides, simply because of who they were. It shows your understanding of your role in ending such tragedies even before they can begin in the future. Today we will pay tribute to the men and women from Croatia who have been honored as righteous among the nations for their courageous acts in saving the Jews from certain death. We will continue our commemoration this evening at 7:30 with the film Defiant Requiem. This 2012 film tells a story of a cultural and spiritual resistance inside the Terezin concentration camp. Led by imprisoned symphony conductor Raphael Schachter, the inmates of Terezin fought back with art and with music. This creative rebellion reaches its peak when Schachter teaches a choir of 150 inmates one of the world's most difficult and powerful choral works, Verdi's Requiem, reimagined as a condemnation of the Nazis. So we hope that you will return to join us for that film this evening. And now, please join me in welcoming HELENE ZADOK, President of the American Jewish Committee.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming and joining us today. A special thanks to Joško Paro, Croatian ambassador to the United States, Josip Božic, Consul General of Croatia in Los Angeles, and Marijan Orsenic, Consular, Los Angeles. All of you are joining us today as we observe the UN Holocaust Victim Observance, along with others in Washington and New York who are also at ceremonies of this kind. I want to thank the Consular Corps, St. John's School, and Barron Academy students for continuing to support our program since its inception. I want to express my appreciation in particular to the students of the St. John Choir. They've not only accepted our invitation to join us, but they have proactively asked us every year, so when is it and what are we going to do? They so much want to be a part of this. And their parents, we so appreciate the fact that they're not only here because of their children, but they're also here as a remembrance to the Holocaust victims. So I really want to express my personal appreciation to that. Speaking as a daughter whose mother was the only one in her family to live to tell the story, it is really important for me that the memory of that war generation does not die with them. We have to go midor lador, from generation to generation, and we must be vigilant in keeping the memory alive. Not only must we recognize what took place in Europe, but we have to be vigilant about any situation that looks like it's going to turn into a new genocide. I want to say a word about the ceremony that's going to take place after we finish the program, where the diplomats and the students from Barron Academy will go to the children's garden, and I hope all of you come with us out there. And they're going to place stones on the tombstone in the garden. I'd like to explain what that is. We call them memory stones, and it's a custom in the Jewish tradition that when you visit a grave, you put a stone there to show that you remember that person. I'd like to extend that to a new twist that started in Germany by a non-Jewish artist, where all over Germany, over 27,000 stepping stones, as they're called, were put on the ground in front of homes of Jews who lived in that house and were deported, never to return. They're all over Germany. When I was in Berlin at the invitation of the German Foreign Ministry, I was taken to the area of Berlin that has them, Wilhelmsdorf, Charlottenburg. And it is truly something I hope all of you go to see when you're in Berlin. It's a testimony to the Jews of Germany that was done totally non-governmentally by ordinary German citizens. In closing, it is my pleasure to recognize Fabrizio. Hard for me because he's been such a wonderful friend to AJC. Fabrizio NAVA, Dean of the Consular Corps, who is the Consul General of Italy. Sadly for us, he will be departing Easton this summer and go to cooler climates in Canada as the Deputy Ambassador to Canada in Ottawa. Please.
Thank you, Helen. A number of years ago, the date of January 27 was chosen for the remembrance of the Shoah, the extermination of over 6 million people in the name of a religious ideology. If we don't want this date to become a mere institutional habit, it is essential to provide contents, and especially to involve the younger generations, those who more often is distracted by the fast pace of contemporary life, chasing temporary fashion and myths. The memory of what happened must remain alive in all of us, so that what happened can and must serve as a warning in order to stop similar atrocities from happening again. The best way to remember the Shoah, but also every other genocide and ethnic cleansing, is to remember the righteous. Those persons who said no, who did not remain indifferent and opposed the rise of evil, also at the risk of their own life. They proved that every person can do something to counter evil. There is a story in the Hebrew tradition which I believe fits all the righteous people. It says that in the world there are always 36 righteous men and women. No one knows who they are, and not even they are aware of being such. But when it appears as evil is about to prevail, they come out and take the destiny of the world upon their shoulders. This is one of the reasons why God does not destroy the world. At the end of this time, they quietly go back to their lives, to their everyday routine, almost forgetting what they had done. Since they fell, they just keep repeating. What would you have done in my place? Seeing people killed and persecuted for a different religious belief? This was the answer that George Verlaska, a righteous person who was honored here 2 years ago, gave to those who asked him, why? Why did he do it? Why did he risk his life when he could have just sheltered and waited for the end of the war? It is important to accompany the hard, painful, and necessary remembrance of the atrocities that occurred with the testimony of the righteous among the nations. This in order to give a complete sense of the memory, but also to give a positive message, an example to follow in things of life, both big and small. Closing my remarks, I wish to quote Ennio Dino, an Italian partisan and one of the few that survived in a Auschwitz concentration camp, who said that a lot of what we had sworn to do has not yet been achieved. There still are wars and mass killings for race, religion, or nationalism. Justice, freedom, and peace still haven't been achieved for many. It is true that those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. However, while treasuring the lessons from the past, we must not forget that they are, first of all, the foundation on which we must build a better future.
I'm Dina Palermo. With Charlotte Berkowitz, I am the co-chair of today's event. I'm going to give some remarks about the righteous from Croatia. In a world of moral collapse, there was a small minority of men and women who mustered the extraordinary courage to uphold human values during World War II's Holocaust. These were the righteous among nations. They stand in stark contrast to the indifference and hostility that prevailed during the Holocaust. Contrary to the general trend, these rescuers regarded the Jews as fellow human beings to whom they felt an obligation. Most rescuers started off as bystanders who were faced with the need to make an instant decision. This was usually an impulsive human gesture made on the spur of the moment. The decision would often lead the rescuers to becoming more involved. First, a rescuer may agree to hide someone during a raid or a roundup, to provide shelter for a day or two until something else could be found, which would evolve into a rescue that lasted months and often years. The price that rescuers had to pay for their action if they had been caught ranged from incarceration to death to their entire family. As a consequence, rescuers and the rescued lived under constant fear of being caught. There was always the danger of being turned in by a neighbor or other collaborators. Those who decided to shelter Jews often had to sacrifice their normal lives and embarked upon a clandestine existence. Most rescuers were ordinary people, and it's precisely their humanity that touches us and should serve as a model. So far, Yad Vashem, the World Center for Documentation, Research, Education, and Commemoration of the Holocaust, has recognized righteous from 44 countries and nationalities. Today, we are here to recognize the righteous from Croatia. Sorry, I have to do this, and I'm not really good at electronic stuff. After the German invasion of Yugoslavia in April of 1941, the country was divided between Germany and its allies, Italy, Bulgaria, and Hungary. The regions of Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina were united into a puppet state, the so-called independent state of Croatia, that was ruled by Croatia's fascist movement. The fascists immediately embarked upon a campaign to purge Croatia of foreign elements. Hundreds of thousands of Serbs were expelled or sadistically murdered. Beginning in 1941, Jews were put in concentration camps. By the end of that year, about 2/3 of Croatia's Jews had been sent to camps. Most of them had been killed on arrival. In August of 1942 and May of 1943, the Germans deported the remaining Jews from Croatia to Auschwitz. In total, 30,000 of Croatia's 37,000 Jews perished in the Holocaust. 109 Croatians have been recognized for their courageous acts in saving Jews from certain death. Today, I will tell you the story of two of those brave people who risked everything to save others. Sometime in the winter of 1941, an unusual package was delivered to the offices of the Jewish community in Zagreb. A man deposited a cardboard box and left it without explanation. When the box was opened, the community officials found a baby girl, Dina Buchler, with a note. "Please take this baby to my cousin Blanca first." The note was hanging around her neck, and it had an address on it. Blanca had a tearful reunion with her niece Dina. She explained that the child's father, Dragutin Buchler, a lawyer, had been sent to a concentration camp from which he never returned. Dina's mother, also Blanca Buchler, a housewife, had been arrested with her daughter Dina and incarcerated in another camp. Somehow, Dina's mother found a way to smuggle her out of the camp. Blanca took her niece home, but the Germans began deporting the Jews in 1942. So Blanca decided to join the resistance movement, but she needed a safe place to find for her niece. She approached a convent, but the nuns refused to take a child so young. They referred Blanca to a woman who was willing to take the baby and care for her for payment. Blanca put the baby in the woman's care and left. However, when one of Blanca's friends, Gina Beritek, visited the child, she found that the child was suffering from malnutrition and was hardly clothed. So disregarding the danger to herself and her son, Gina decided to bring Dina home with her. Gina and her son devotedly took care of little Dina. She did not waver, even when the rumors spread that she was hiding a Jewish child. To protect Dina, Gina had her baptized and changed her name to Marija. When the war ended, Dina's parents did not return. They had both perished in the Holocaust. Dina's Aunt Blanca did return for her, but Dina was most distraught to leave the home of Gina Beritek, who had cared for her for those many years. Despite the difficulty in parting with the child she had grown to love, Gina explained to Dina that she was Jewish and that she should be brought up among her own family. Dina later emigrated to Israel, but continued to keep in touch with her rescuers. In 1994, Gina Beritek and her son Thimol were recognized as the righteous among nations. Pictured here, you see Dina with her rescuer Thimol in Israel at the presentation of the award. The second story is about Ivan Vraniček. In September of 1943, the German occupation of Italy and the territories under its control, after the occupation of Italy and the territories under its control, the Yugoslavia resistance arrived at the island of Rab in the Adriatic Sea. They released the Jews who were interned on the island's camp and helped them reach an area in southern Croatia that was under their control. Some of the Jews joined the ranks of the resistance, while the women, children, and infirm among them stayed in the villages in southern Croatia. Many of the village residents, however, had been connected to the fascist movement, who were responsible for the murder of most of the Jews of Croatia. These residents ignored the distress of the arriving Jews. However, 17-year-old Ivan Vraniček aided the Jews from the moment they arrived. Ivan befriended many of the Jewish refugees and found them places to hide. He carried children and elderly people on his back to places of refuge. Among the refugees was Anna Motilia, whose husband had been killed in the concentration camp. She arrived there with her small daughter and an elderly mother. Ivan found them a hiding place. In one case, when a rumor broke out that the Germans were approaching and a number of Jews fled in the wrong direction toward the German forces, Ivan ran out and found them, and he directed them toward safety. Ivan risked his life over and over again for the Jewish refugees. After the war, he kept in contact with many of the Jews he saved, among them Arna Mutilio. I could not have survived with an old mother and a little girl without his help, she told Yad Vashem. Many years later, Ivan said that he had fallen in love with Arna, but their mothers were opposed to their marriage. Arna immigrated to Israel, where she remarried and had another 2 children. She kept in constant written contact with Ivan. Some 20 years later, he went to Israel. By that time, Arna had been separated from her second husband. The renewed encounter rekindled their love. I'm sorry. I'm real salty about love. And the 2 were married. I'm sorry. Okay. In 1970, Yad Vashem honored Ivan Vranitek as the righteous among nations. He was awarded honorary citizenship to the State of Israel, and in 1986, he was elected chairman of the Organization of the Righteous Among Nations in Israel. In 2009, Vranitek greeted the Pope when he visited Israel and Yad Vashem. We are so grateful to all those people who acted courageously, again demonstrating how one person can make a difference. They are an example to the rest of us. Thank you so much.
Is unique as we have an ambassador joining us, and also because we are recognizing citizens who, through their actions and without diplomatic immunity, opposed the fascist policies of their government. The Croatian ambassador, Mr. Paro, over the name, I'm sorry, in Washington, the ambassador in Washington, D.C., comes from the position of the President's Foreign Policy Advisor, where he served since February 2010. He joined the Croatian Foreign Service in January 1992, working on bilateral relations with Western European countries. From 1993 to 1996, he served as Deputy Chief of Mission at the Croatian Embassy in Madrid. In 1996, he was head of the Political Analysis Department and was also speechwriter to the Foreign Minister. From 1997 to 2002, as Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Paro was responsible for relations with neighboring and European countries, as well as the USA, Russia, Canada, and Israel. An experienced negotiator, he played a prominent role in post-conflict normalization of relations with neighboring countries. In 2003, he was appointed ambassador to the United Kingdom, a position which he held until 2009, when he was transferred to The Hague. There, he served as Croatian ambassador to the Kingdom of the Netherlands and as Croatian permanent representative at OPCW. He is married to Jasna Paro, a journalist for HTV, and he is the father of 2 children. Ambassador Paro.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Consular Corps, for me this is a very special and very emotional occasion. I have just 2 minutes maybe, but I have to say a couple of things that, especially for children and their generations to come. Remembrance is important to remind us of how ill we can be and how good we can be. Well, we all have some kind of historic background. Well, that could be more exciting, less exciting. Well, my grandfather was a high official of the fascist regime that had exterminated 2/3 of the Jewish people in Croatia. My father was a member of the anti-fascist resistance movement. I had married an MOT. So, this is what we are. We can be whatever. Life brings us in a situation that we can become heroes and we can become a villain. So, but I think that what our president said 2 years ago in Knesset in Israel, he is one of the very few statesmen who came to Knesset and asked for forgiveness. Well, he himself is a child of a partisan, Tito's partisan, very prominent Tito's partisan, and in Croatia there is a discussion about it was the independent fascist state that was killing Jews and Serbs above all. But we had a movement that was opposed to that. Well, and our state is not an heir of the fascist state. We are heirs of the resistance movement. But still, what he recognized before Knesset, there was a snake of evil in the body of the Croatian people. We were able to produce both things. And it is still in the Croatian people. We call ourselves proudly. Can we be proud without remembering the evil that we have been able to commit? No. And that's why he stood there and has spoken about a weakened snake in our heart. But it is still there. And that is why I think Holocaust remembrance is so important. It reminds us of what we are able to do and what we are able to bystand. As it is, for example, the disaster, the shame of the humankind that is happening in Syria as we sit here. For example, these are the reasons why we have to think about that. And when he apologized, he said in Knesset, he said, I'm standing before you, representatives of a Jewish state, but above all, I'm standing here before the children of Croatia and ask you forgiveness. So, well, I'm very proud that 108 were defined as rescuers. I'm sure that there are hundreds that are never defined. Well, my mother-in-law, she survived with her mother, who pretended to be a Muslim ferryman on Danube survived. That's how they survived Holocaust. Everyone else ended up in Jasenovac. So, they are people, and we are capable. And I think that this is an occasion to recognize look deep into our hearts and recognize the capability of being good for the generations to come. This is all human that happened. This is how bad we are, and these examples that we are going to commemorate today are those that we should follow. Well, thank you very much.